Welcome to a podcast celebrating Scottish culture and entertainment, which is here to sing the praises of books, films, comedy, music, theatre, exhibitions, telly, poetry, and all that jazz. I'm Nicola Meehan. I'm an arts writer and broadcaster, and I'll give you the lowdown on what's coming up, what's happening now, what came before, and what we love, which is to say that every week I'm here to give you a kick up the arts. Now, just before we get wired into this episode, quick reminder that I'll be in conversation with the brilliant writer David Keenan, whose hallucinogenic books include Extabeth and This Is Memorial Device. We'll be chatting about his new collection of music writing, Volcanic Tongue. That's live at Edinburgh's Portobello Bookshop on March the 27th, 7pm prompt. There'll be loads of tunes too, and we would love you to join us. But in the meantime, onto this episode, and it is with a band that I have loved madly since I was at primary school. It's 40 years since the early days of Deacon Blue, and over 35 since their debut, Raintown, defined the landscape of 80s Glasgow, and its follow-up, When the World Knows Your Name, made the band a household name and knocked Madonna off the top of the charts. They toured all the theatres, sold out arenas, broke our hearts, or certainly mine, when they broke up in 1994, and then they made up for it, and with each other, back in 1999. Their leading lights have changed since then. Bassist Ewen Vernal left for other musical adventures, and we lost beloved guitarist Graeme Kelling in 2004. But Ricky Ross, Dougie Vipond, Lorraine McIntosh and James Prime are still as fired up as ever, and they're now further stoked by Lewis Gordon and by co-writer and producer Gregor Philp. They are back with a new album, The Great Western Road, which is a gift of a title for Deacon Blue and their driving take on their America. That big old street runs right through Glasgow and across the band's history like a stick of rock. And they were always big on going away and coming back with souvenirs. When they announced the new LP and released its lead single late 88, which was their biggest chart success in decades, incidentally, I'm going to tell you right now, I slid straight into Ricky's DMs and I told him how much I loved the single in an unsolicited 10-paragraph diatribe. That is lower, significantly, than the word count for the liner notes I wrote for the band's You Can Have It All and All the Old 45s releases a couple of years ago. But you know, it was still quite a lot. Anyway, despite all that, he and Lorraine invited me around to their house for a coffee and for a chat for a kick up the arts. We're going to be discussing all of this more, incidentally, along with the rest of the band at Glasgow's Oran Moor on March 26th. There are going to be 2 acoustic sets and album launch gigs, and if you're quick, you can maybe grab the final tickets for the matinee show. But meanwhile, back at theirs for this podcast chat, Lorraine was concerned about the first pot of coffee she made, so she made it twice. Then we sat around their kitchen table in the room next to their home studio where most Deacon Blue songs come to life these days. We chatted about their recent Beyoncé cover on Radio 2 and which band member paid for kebabs with Raintown demos in the 1980s, and also about how they rejoined forces with that debut album's engineer Matt Butler when they laid down this new LP at Rockfield Studios in Wales. We talked about the Great Western Road. Thank you for the coffee, it's perfect.
It's a wee bit better.
Is it stronger?
It's a wee bit stronger, it's not very tasty.
It's not the coffee.
It's not the Lazy Sunday, I'll tell you now.
Oh, is that a better brand? Okay.
Lazy Sunday's just saying.
You're not a great coffee maker in your life.
Are you the coffee maker?
I'm a coffee maker.
Oh,
Are
yeah.
you?
I don't really like coffee.
You're wild. Are you just having it to keep me company?
Well, I do like the communal drink, having a cup of coffee. But if I never had another cup in my life, it wouldn't bother me.
It's just the ritual of it. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you then. Well, it is. I can tell you it's lovely.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. And it's very, very lovely to see you both. And let us begin with that album name and the song behind it. Because as soon as I heard it and I read it was announced, I was like, was there ever a more Deacon Blue title in the history of all album titles? And I mean from any band. When did you hit on it? Because it just feels like it's so apt.
Actually, what happened was the album title came out before, in my head, was there before any song was written. It was almost the first thing I did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like...
When I think of Great Western Road in Glasgow, I just think about the driving through the West End part and then at sunset.
Yeah.
Remember when we used to live in the West End, we'd drive along the Great Western Road.
Yeah.
And the sun would be absolutely blinding.
Yeah.
When it was going down. It was almost you couldn't drive it. So it's a lovely image actually of the sunset.
And so, I mean, it just became this it became an album title before even anything was there, and I think it just kind of landed, and I thought, well, I'm going to have that.
Bus driver, won't you take me to the furthest place from here, to somewhere I've not been before, but maybe you have seen over the hills.
And then the more I thought about it, the more it became important to what I was kind of hinting, writing towards, which is just being, it's being 67, it's being the age you're at, and trying to write the songs about the point of life you're at, and thinking forward. And now, of course, there's not as much time in front of you as there was. It's not being doomy or it's not being gloomy about it. It's just being realistic about it.
Yeah.
But there's also an excitement about the unknown, you know, because it's like the next adventure. And that's kind of what I feel. And that unknown is sort of, I mean, the Great Western Road is such a great metaphor, because I used to get out at St George's Cross and go to work just up the road in St Columba in the secondary. That's where I used to work. And turns out, a few yards from where I got out at that underground station, Lorraine used to live with Ewen.
I lived on Great Western Road with
and a few
Ewen,
others folk in a flat. And then a few hundred yards up from that, we all used to meet at Kelvin Bridge and basically met in Chimichangas, and then we would go out and do gigs in Dunfermline or wherever we're going.
And that was all on the Great Western Road.
It was all the Great Western Road, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of runs through everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got this geographic, if you like, connection that goes right back to the start of Deacon Blue. Couldn't help noticing, Ricky, that it does contain the phrase "over the hill." Surely not.
Yeah.
I love that, actually. Over the hill. Yep.
Yeah.
Travelling still.
Yeah.
Quite.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. The road still goes on, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it does. And you know, so that's why we took the pictures. We took a lot of the pictures out of Loch Lomond, because it goes there. And then, of course, it goes way beyond. I mean, if you end, just keep going, you get to Fort William, and who knows where else you get after that. But that's the beauty about that A82. It just keeps going. And it was a perfect sort of scene setter, and it managed to frame all the things that I think I was, everything's not connected. I mean, every album is not a concept album, but there's always a kind of overriding sense that you've got.
Yeah.
I always feel that both lyrically and musically. So I never worry if chord progressions appear maybe in 2 or 3 songs. Sometimes that feels quite good. It feels like it sort of unifies the
Or
whole
phrases.
thing. Or phrases.
Yeah, they recur.
Yeah, and I think that's a lovely thing, and I think also it allows you to really delve into something, so you can take it at surface level, or you can go deeper, or as soon as you start listening back, even to songs that you might know or songs that you don't, it brings everything into this sort of cohesive whole, even if they don't necessarily all sound the same, and that's such a lovely thing. But there are also slight traditions that I really love about Deacon Blue, and which really ring out on this record. It opens with a hymn, if you like, before it goes bombastic, which it does. So, I mean, from Born in a Storm onwards, James Joyce Souls,
You're the
Here I
only
Am in
person
London
that's
Town.
got that. I keep saying to people, it reminds me of Raintown. And it starts, and they're like, oh yeah, but you got it.
Yeah. I mean, I've always argued, I know Sad Love Girl is on the B side, is in the opening, the second side of When the World Knows Your Name, but it's that thing of having this moment of reflection.
Our good friend Roddy was interviewing me this morning, and he's because Roddy's a musician, he gets these things as well. And I was saying to him, it's a bit like starting a gig. Yeah. In some ways, it's kind of good to draw people. It's like, if you want to get a crowd around you, you start off quietly and you say, come in,
Yeah, that's it. Totally.
And then you get them. And I think that always feels more what I want to do, and then you kind of build up a bit.
Yeah, quite. It's lovely. And also, there's a notion of patience and of waiting that resonates throughout the record. And again, everything, the stall is kind of set, isn't it, a little bit in this beginning. We get Wait On Me a little bit later. Yeah. The wait is what we know in the first song. And also, I was thinking about Wait On Me because that's also got the keep your eyes on the road There are these lovely echoes of each other throughout, but it feels like you're still exploring, like, what's ahead, and we need that musically as well, right?
Well, you know, it's funny you say that. My old dear friend Richard Holloway, he's a lovely man.
Oh, yeah.
And Richard always said about, you know, because Richard's kind of in a kind of weird way, he kind of affirms my faith, but he also lost it himself. But
Really?
he always described people as being we're Easter Saturday people. You know, we're in that place where we're waiting for something to happen. We don't quite know what it is, and I think that's true. Yeah.
It's a lovely thing as well. So yes, that's it. The stall is set, and then of course we get late 88. Now, my goodness, when I heard this, well, you know, because I took to Twitter to tell you, Ricky. I was like, I won't write anything.
We loved it.
I couldn't hold back. And of course, before I had even heard it, I'm thinking, all right, this is a wonderful, phonetically it's lovely, late 88. So maybe it was just a poetic choice, but I feel like no. And of course, you can't help reading into the fact that at this point in Deacon Blue, you're maybe going, I don't know what late is compared to mid to late, but as I understand it, maybe Real Gone Kid is kind of coming into the autumn, okay, which is really changing the landscape for the band. The rest of When the World Knows Your Name is a bit up in the air still. It hadn't all been recorded. So then we go into this time where you're getting told, wait a minute, this is going to be big. We're looking at arenas. Real Gone Kid has kind of led the way. So was it that feeling of looking back on that time?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
It was, and you know, we were talking about this a lot because we never really took time to celebrate any of these things. But in reality, they were changing our lives. It was so exciting.
Can't recall why, but we seem to do it all. And it all seems so easy. That was long ago. We didn't even care about what we didn't know. Never thought about tomorrow.
I always remember, for example, and we always remember because Lorraine's your dad was still there. Well, he was there for a couple of years more, but I always remember we had a party at the Edinburgh Theatre, the Playhouse, and we finished the tour, and that was the night that Real Gone Kid had gone into the top 10, and we were like going nuts. It was like, whoa, this is amazing. And the next morning we were coming home back to Glasgow, and Jill, our tour manager, said, listen, we're going to go into the SEC. We take the bus in, we're going to drive in the bus, and we drive the bus into the building, you know, because like we just played the biggest gig we're ever going to play, we thought, you know, the Playhouse. And you drove the tour bus into the SEC, but we're going to be playing here next spring. And I thought, are you serious? This is nuts.
I thought you were going to tell the story of my dad being at the gig in the Playhouse.
Oh, that was that gig. That's
At the after party, the record company had sort of come up and they were all really excited and all this. And was Paul Russell there?
I think he might have been.
The head of CBS at the time. And my dad was up from Cumnock, and my dad liked to drink, and he went to the bar to get a round of drinks, and he came back and he said to my brother, don't say anything. He said, but I think they think I'm that guy who's the head of the record company because I didn't have to pay for those drinks. All the drinks were free. But the notion that my dad, he had his front tooth missing, but he did not look like the head of any record company, but it was so funny. He was so up for it. Don't say anything, they think I'm Paul Russell.
Because that's how unusual and unlikely it would have been, right?
Well, exactly. It was such a big deal, you know.
So it was, I mean, it was, but you know, we didn't stop, we didn't, you know, you were just kind of on the next thing, on the next. That's what I mean. The bus went literally from there, going to the SEC. And then we were off to make the rest of the album, and it was just, there was never. It did change our lives in a kind of suddenly because you were on the telly, and all that kind of thing. But we never really, in some ways, you know, stopped and just.
No, I
you know,
think
parted.
You're
We just,
young and you're driven, and it takes a while to learn to appreciate things as they happen. And I think we appreciate things a lot more now. Obviously, you're older. You realise these things don't just keep coming round. You know, this might be the last record we ever make. This might be the last tour we ever do. Who knows? I mean, that's quite likely.
I'm delighted to say you've said that to me probably 4 or 5 times.
Who knows? Do you know
But
what
we
I
do
mean?
say that to ourselves because it's important. I
We
think.
have to, because Tom will say, you know, oh yeah,
Your
there's
manager.
been our manager. Tom will say, yeah, there's been so we're going to push back Australia till January 26th. And I'd say, Tom, you do realise how old we are. We can't really keep pushing things back another year, you know. God willing, we're all here and able, but you just can't take them for granted. And it's great to, as things happen, just appreciate them as they happen in the moment. It's hard, but we try.
But it's also lovely, I think, to be able to appreciate what did happen then. That song is just so joyous, but it seems to, even for a fan's point of view, it seems to pack so much of what was happening back in there.
Didn't we make it so everyone would know? We told the whole world where to go. Out of full control, but we've never been before. So everyone would know we did it all.
And it is so wrapped up in the songs that we came to know and love at that point. And again, you absolutely embraced it. There's this idea of running in late 88. And that's what it must have been at the time, because yes, Real Gone Kid happened. But then, you know, obviously you've got all these huge songs, Fergus Sings the Blues, Wages Day, Queen of the New Year, massive hits. But that was a choice, right? I remember wondering, was the record label asking for hits? You wanted the hits.
Well, I was scared of not being on the radio, you know. I was really, because there was only one, you know, we weren't an indie band, so we weren't going to be REM, you know, we were going to be who we were. So the important thing for us was to try and, you know, it was basically the question my colleagues when I was leaving teaching, they said, are you going to be on Top of the Pops and are you going to make a video? And you want to say yes to both these things.
Yeah.
But, you know, until you're on Top of the Pops, it wasn't going to cut it, you know. And people, I remember people saying, what does your dad think about you leaving your job? I said, he'll be fine when we're on Top of the Pops. You know, he was fine. But it was important. And I think we were in the middle of making Raintown, and I remember someone saying about singles. And I literally... None of us had given it any thought, and John Kelly, who was quite good at,
He
was quite producer, and he said, and he thought there's a conversation that just went right. He went, well, have you got any songs that suit 12 to 14-year-old girls? Because they're the ones that buy singles. No,
I can tell you with authority you did.
well, we didn't think we had.
Living proof.
Yeah,
You're living proof.
Yeah. But, you know, it was like that. And I thought, well, I don't want to do... I want to go in and just have something that goes on the radio. And kind of actually that's what we went into this album with too, you know?
Well, quite, because not only did late 88 straight away go on to the, you know, so many radio playlists, it was all over Radio 2 to my absolute delight. Then you get to go into the piano room, then you get to play it like that, the piano lounge, and... You bring Beyonce into the equation as well, which I adored, by the way. Was that a no-brainer? God, it's a great version.
Bloody terrifying. That's what it was. Honestly, one of the things. We decided you have to cover a song, and Radio 2 have a lot of say in what you cover.
Okay.
When you are asked to do like Tracks of My Years or whatever, or singing on various things, they like to have a say in it.
Curate it.
So so we had to come up with something we thought they would like, and I think they agreed to that one right away. But it was tough to learn.
I did. It was like being a bit of lob over the trenches. I thought if I suggest something halfway down, they can think. I don't want them. I mean, think. If we suggest this, they'll go yeah. But I hadn't even told the band.
Oh.
Well, and I thought and everyone went. But Gregor was brilliant because someone had given. About 10 years ago, Gregor said someone in Rainbow Music in Dundee had given him this steel guitar that he'd never really played before. Brilliant. And so we had to get a demo together. And I said, that sounds brilliant. And it's this steel guitar.
Well, he got the demo together.
He did, yeah. Gregor was brilliant.
We were playing with an orchestra. So Gregor made the demo, and Ricky and I sang it every day. We said, right, we'll sing it once every day until the... And one day, one of our daughters was round, and I said, do you want to hear it? And so we sang it. And after it, Josh just said, Dad just looked absolutely terrified.
It was.
It was a hard song to learn for some reason. It was so out of our normal storytelling kind of song. It was a tough one.
But eventually became quite good fun, actually.
Yeah,
it
totally.
great
and
fun.
People absolutely loved it. And I mean, you know, the original is glorious.
Oh, it's amazing.
I love that song. I know you're a huge fan, and obviously from a country music perspective, both of you know your stuff, and Beyonce's just a dream. But, you know, the idea of radio, it strikes me literally just now. Obviously, Radio On, that was your first very early solo single, wasn't it? And, in fact, the last Deacon Blue single, before your sort of split, I was right and you were wrong. There's a radio reference in that, isn't there? And Voices Sounding Strange. And, of course, now Turn Up Your Radio.
Yeah.
Radio really has been... You know, audiences have decided that they love Deacon Blue and you're not going away. It was never so much the press.
No, it was never
Right?
the press, no.
It was actually us who decided if you like, right?
Yeah.
It didn't really matter what people were writing about you, except, of course, myself and some other choice journalists.
No, it kind of did at first, and then you sort of get beyond it, and then Yeah, it's never. I mean, I remember, fun enough, there was a guy when I was just touting my demos around, and it was, I mean, Deacon Blue just started, and there was one of the Glasgow writers for a music paper. Oh no, he was actually a young junior A&R guy, and he came up and had a chat about things. He was one of the guys that used to be in Altered Images, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And he said to me, right, really early on, he said, "You're never going to be Press Darlings, are you?" I said, "No, yeah." And it was
we
funny.
were at the beginning.
But we kind of were in a funny
At the
kind of way.
beginning,
Yeah.
until you start getting some
Success,
and then you're. I mean, somebody said to me the other day in one of the interviews, it was the Guardian one, and how did you feel when you were on the cover of the NME? I said, I didn't feel anything. I didn't read the NME. I didn't care about the NME. You know,
it's like it's been a love affair with radio from the fans certainly, but perhaps for you guys as well. And of course, you've got your show as well, Ricky. So Turn Up Your Radio. When did that come into being within the record and the life of it?
Well, so by some point, late '88 was quite early on. I'd come back from. I can't remember something. I think it was in Australia, and I'd come back. I thought, I want these big fat synths on this thing. And Greg and I kept trying to get them bigger and bigger, massive 80s synths, and these two chords. So we'd kind of got that track together, and then one day I was coming down Kilmarnock Road, and Radio 6 was on, 6 Music, and they were playing this track. I'd never heard it before, called by Lack of Afro, and it was like this massive mashup of two.
It's brilliant.
And it's got brass and strings. I went, that's brilliant. I'm going to go home and rip that off, and as you do, but not really. Just it was completely different. It wasn't the tune. It was just like the idea of putting everything, like kitchen sink, everything on it. And we just kept piling, because when you're doing digital recording, it doesn't, you can't really get that voice. So eventually, of course, we've got real strings, real brass, and all the samples and all the rest. And as I kept saying, it just has to be massive.
It does. It builds and builds, and a lot of the songs do that. Actually, there's such a sense of momentum, despite the fact that there's maybe a reflective quality and there's ideas of waiting. The energy seems so forward looking and forward moving.
And I just thought it was like, it was just like a kind of clarion call. It was like, turn up the radio, we're not going to hide. Just make it like,
Because you suddenly announced yesterday, as if I'd asked you, which I hadn't, you suddenly announced, Turn Up Your Radio is about confidence. And belief in yourself. And saying, well, if you can't hear me, then you better start listening. Yes, because I'm not going to stop talking.
Yeah, I'm not going to hide away from it. And it was kind of funny.
But I love that. It is a command, right? I kind of, turn up your radio. And I love that sense of certainty. There are moments, again, in late 88, didn't we do it all? And of course, I was thinking about Wages Day and You Can Have It All.
I love that.
But by the end of the song and the way it plays out, it's saying, we did it all. Yeah. And I love, again, it's not an arrogance, but it is maybe a bit more of a confidence that going, we really did do a lot.
Well, it's really funny, it's because it's looking back and you think you set out to have this dream, and you have to look back and think, well, we got there, we got what we wanted out. We have a new grandson. That's his big catchphrase. It's so funny. We used to pick him up. Lorraine used to pick him up from his daycare, and it had a terrible U-turn to do on this mad Californian road that the cars come along 100 miles an hour. You have to go do a U-turn, and so his dad used to say to him, "Hey, Ansel, we did it." And so now every time, we did it, But it's like that. It was like setting out a whole lot of impossible things. If you don't sort of set out to do something quite ambitious with your art, then you think, well, what you've got to reach somehow for the impossible, and that's the fun,
and also musically, I think the lovely thing is there are certain touchstones like the wonderful sort of Sam to ease us into the album, and then you just floor us. And also there are always new musical ideas as well. So we've got Chic, and we've got Take a Walk on the Wild Side. I certainly think in late 88, we've got a lot of funk going on in mid-century modern. Let's talk about that. Right?
I love that. Gregor's favourite song.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with it.
I basically did a lot.
It's superb.
I basically kind of went off on one day, and I found this little loop that I'll tell you what happened. I wrote the whole song, an idea, and Lorraine came and said, you've gone there loads of times. Don't do that. So she does this.
Is she like you like the editor? Like,
she's still the editor.
Me,
And I'll say to her, which we did another song eventually, come in and write it with me. But He said, no, just do it again. And then I thought, fair enough, it actually wasn't, it was very unfocused. And then I sort of came upon this idea of this, it's sort of partly true, an old girlfriend, the street that we used to live in. It is true, there's a bit of the story that's true, but there's an awful lot of it that's also just kind of imagined. But I don't know, for some reason I just said, wahoo, and then it started. I think actually the demo, which was done on an old mic in there, is still on the track. So we then sent the demo. I sent what I've got to Gregor, and he said, can I just play with this for about 2 days? So he tracked so much stuff up on it that we actually used a lot of the demo on the final cut because it just made sense. But yeah, I love that song.
Oh, I love that. I think that might be my favourite song on the album. I love so many of the lines. I love it. How long summer shadows fall.
Yeah, that's a gorgeous
I love
line.
that, and I love that bit there. I mean, it just goes about that photograph, you and me, both so young and alive. I love it.
No longer modern, but getting
old. That's right. Absolutely.
And the old photographs. There's a real visual quality which I love to it as well. It can be as epic as the Great Western Road, which is everything from our favourite, sorry, when I say our, I mean my favourite kebab shop, to the stretch out to, over the land
Is that
of
the
the
kebab
city.
shop at Kelvin Bridge?
Yeah.
I think I've been in there.
Yeah.
It's been there for years and
It
years.
has, yeah. It's an old favourite.
In fact, I think that might be the kebab shop that Graeme handed over our demo when we were demoing songs.
Oh, really?
Of the album of
To pay for his
Raintown.
kebab?
And I went in one night and they were playing it, and I said, how did you get that? And they were like, oh, well, we got this from a customer. And it was Graeme,
So Graeme Kelling had gone in for his kebab.
Yeah,
handed it over.
He knew the guy and he was telling the guy, oh yeah, the band's doing this. The guy said, you got anything I can play? And he went, yeah, I remember that.
Well, listen, no wonder I love it so much. I didn't even know that. Like proper stuff of legend. There's another Great Western Road story
Great
for
Western
you.
Road.
That's what's going to happen, isn't it? Everyone's going to tell you a
Yeah.
separate story.
Yeah.
And
Great
they're
Western Road
all
story, yeah.
going to come back. They're all going to get embroiled in Deacon Blue. So it is looking forward and it's moving forward. But there is a lot about memory and reflection and recollection on it as well, how we remember it among them. You said when you set out, you don't have a concept in mind. Do you even have these ideas for themes in mind, or does it just tend to emerge, or you get told about them afterwards? Because we're not sat here and there's not like a sort of themes board. There's not a whiteboard up on the wall.
No.
The record.
No, it just begins
song by song,
and they begin to sort of influence each other, and then once you're writing, once you've got maybe 3 or 4 or 5, you start thinking, oh well, there's something happening here. There's a direction of travel, and I think then they start influencing each other a little bit. And again, I'm a bit of a redrafter now, so how we remember it I started off about someone in the borders, and I thought, well, you sometimes just don't know what a song is about, and you're just going, well, I'll just keep going.
This is how we remember it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just thought, what's all that about? And then we used to have this kind of, we used to talk about, joining the circus. That was our.
Well, we used to say being in the tour bus is like when the circus packs up and you move on. Yeah. Especially when you lie in your bunk and you think, the real world's going on out there, and you're in a wee bunk looking through a window thinking, this is great, we're up to the next town.
And
it's like being in the circus.
And I've always been obsessed with it. When
you love the circus.
I absolutely love it. And when I went, and I would drag the kids to it, and they didn't want to go to it. But when I grew up in just off the Old Glams Road in Dundee, and near Fairmuir Park, and that's where the circus used to be. And I can't tell you how much it was totally romantic. The idea that they all lived in these wee caravans, and then they packed it all up and they went off. And to me, so being in the band was just almost like the same thing. You do one night stands and you go off.
But I think even though when you write the songs, kind of themes, if you like, emerge, there's always the kind of left field ones, and that happens in every album. In Raintown, Spencer Tracy, a song about that in the middle of that album. But they somehow all find their place and their connection to each other, and they're just right because that's where they're meant to be.
That's so true. There's maybe an element of just having trust and faith, in fact, in the record and the songs to find their own place a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, and we actually ended up recording too many and had to make some, kind of brutal kind of edits at the end of just what was going to go on and what was going to stay off. And pretty well all of us agreed on it. I think there was one that I think Lorraine and I, People Come First has always been our. It's a very important song to us, and I think the guys don't quite see that, you know. But that's fun enough. That's our.
That was almost going to be the title of the album.
Yeah, it was at one point.
Okay.
Well,
I'll show you the book at some point. Actually.
Oh yeah, I would love that. Well, certainly for me, I mean, in many ways, that's the Glasgow song. In fact, I was going to tell you the pen in my absolute bin fire of a bag. I was like rooting around in the kind of archaeology at the bottom of it, and I pulled out a pen to make some notes on my very tidy paper you can see here, and literally it said, it's right here. It was a People Make Glasgow pen. And of course, it's that sloganeering aspect of it, or even the Glasgow Smiles Better. You know, there's this element within it of, it feels sort of like a Glasgow song, even though it's not maybe, you know, it's mapped out in Jamaica Street and Hope Street later on, and of course the Great Western Road. But there's something about the spirit of it, which again was of its time in the 88. But now...
Hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
I mean, we went to see in San Francisco last year. Was it last year?
Or the year before.
Or the year before. And we've stayed with friends, and they said, oh, you should go to this exhibition in the De Young Museum, and we went, and it was great, and we came across this artist called...
Alice Neal.
Alice Neal, that's right. And she had a... exhibition on called People Come First, and it was just brilliant. And it's just photographs of the people that surrounded her in her life, in her community, and they're just so lovingly and realistically represented. And I think it kind of blew our minds. Really.
And I thought that's you know, Lorraine's right. It was kind of like, for maybe 5 minutes, that was going to be the title of the album. But I think it was, you know, it was in that mix of ideas.
Yeah. And I think in the world, my God, I don't think we've ever lived in our lifetime that we can remember a darker time.
No, or more divisive.
Exactly, and more frightening and more depressing. So I think this kind of people and these relationships have to come at the heart of something. And even if it's only in songs at the moment that we can do it, then we're going to do it.
Yeah. But also, do you know, I love that you never know when you're going to be completely struck by something like that. So you're at this exhibition and it just floors you.
Absolutely.
Right? We mentioned there, or Ricky touched on the fact that he had some lyrics, Lorraine, and he brought them into you, and you were like, you've said that before, or you've done that. Now, the thing is, I mean, there are so many recurring words and phrases and themes throughout the entirety. I mean, So Long Ago, and Long Ago features on this album, features on Late 88, was, of course, your solo debut album in 1984. I mean, I love the fact that even as a man in his 20s,
You're talking about So Long Ago. I never thought about that.
You've always had that longing, and you've never written almost as it's not that you were nostalgic for your youth even then, it was almost this sense of a longing for some place or some time.
I guess.
So there are these phrases that resonate. However, at what point do you say, well, but I think this could work a different way? Because it's not obviously as simple as repetition, if you like.
No.
Do you just get a hunch?
Well, Ricky records in there and writes in there, and I'll hear what's going on, and if I'm excited or intrigued by it, or I think, that sounds good, I'll go in.
If she doesn't come in, it's trouble.
And if I don't go in, quite often...
Ricky's sitting in the huff at 2 a.m. and you've not gone in,
you
starving.
But he and Gregor will often be in there, and if Ricky said, can you come and hear this and just see, and you know...
You'll hang by the radiator.
And sometimes... Ricky you have a tendency, here we are now, to meander in a song. You know all this, and I'll just I just want him to write the songs that I want him to write, basically, as a person that can't write songs. And I'll say, but what was the one with the chorus that I just said? No, just repeat that chorus.
People come first.
People come first.
Right,
That's right.
okay,
You had a lot. You like a lot of words.
Yeah.
A lot of words, and I sometimes think, fewer words will say more. Just choose the right one. He knows all that. He's the songwriter.
No, but it's good. I mean, it's great to have that, because and it literally she will. I'll show you the radiator. She comes in.
It's not really a exciting place
comes
to
in
see.
and she stands, and then Greg and I'll be working away in the front and facing the window, and look at she's gone. And I'll think, okay, that's not good.
Anything.
That's not good, because if she'd come in and she wanted to join in, so then Lorraine would say, well, can you not do this or not do that or whatever. But you don't. You're also really positive. It's just but the song that really, fun enough, that that I just couldn't fix. Well, I'd written this. We'd come back from a really nice holiday, and basically we'd been in the Caribbean, and I was just completely laid back. It was great. All we'd been doing was listening to Bob Marley for about a week, and yes. I just wanted to write, at least kind of really just nice, easy, kind of soulful grooves. And so I'd written this thing called Underneath the Stars, and she said, "I was like, but what's up?" I said, "I don't know." It was like,
so when was the last time we were underneath the stars?
Who's underneath the stars in Scotland? Yeah. So I said, "Well, why didn't you?" I said, "Well, what did you do?" She said, "Well, make it about people who imagine they are, but they're not. They're completely opposite." Yeah. So you came in and wrote that with me, and fixed it.
And I love doing that. I can't ever write a song on my own, but I do like occasionally going in and doing a bit of co-writing.
I'm glad you said that though, because you said I'm not a songwriter, and I appreciate that maybe you don't see it that way. But and I've spoken to Gregor about this in the past as well, because you've worked so closely over the last few albums and years, and he said unless you're part of that dynamic, and it's not really because it's in your home as well, no one's noticing who's in the studio or who isn't. Gregor's like, you can't really underestimate or overestimate, I never know which one it is. You know what I mean, right? Anyway, it's a good thing about you, Lorraine. The impact of Lorraine being there on the songwriting, or what you take away is also part of the songwriting. I'm saying, maybe we do need fewer words. Well, but, I would say even just that approach, that's part of the song.
Oh yeah.
Well, Ricky's very, very generous about it, and he calls me the editor, and he does really take on board my opinions about it. And in late '88, before we went down to Rockfield, it was all written and demoed, and I just didn't like the chorus.
Right.
And I kept saying, I just don't like the chorus. The chorus to me is just a bit naff. It's a bit cheesy, it's a bit something, and I just don't like. And Ricky kept saying,
I think Ricky just twitched even at the thought of that now.
It wasn't easy, but I thought I need to say
Did you
this.
text him? I'll text him.
I'll text him later. But he said, no, wait till we get in the studio, it's going to be better, it's going to change, it's going to sound great. And we got in the studio and we recorded it, and at some point I have to hold up my hands and go, you're the boss, you're the songwriter, so we're going with it. And then we recorded it, and we had one day left in the studio, so we were finishing on the Saturday morning, and the Thursday night we had a big listen back to everything that we thought was finished. And Ricky suddenly said, right, I don't like that chorus, so I'm going to go tonight. This is like at 10 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to go tonight, and I'll come in first thing tomorrow morning on the last day, and I'm going to rewrite a new chorus for us, and we'll all be recording it tomorrow about 10 o'clock. So I'm going now, and off he went. And of course, it was so funny because we all went off to our kind of room. We all thought we could write a better. So I'm thinking, yes, this is my moment. So I was lying in the bath shouting, what about this one if it went, and he's like, no, leave it, I'm doing it. So then he got up in the morning and went in and rewrote the chorus with Matt, our engineer, recording very early in the morning, and we came down at 10, and he's like, okay, let's go. And it was brilliant. I love that chorus now.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I mean, love it.
And it's instant. It's absolutely instant.
And it just felt so... I couldn't wait to get in and sing it.
Yeah.
And the backing vocals just totally threw themselves at you, and everything just worked then.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So it was great.
Yeah, but that was the exciting thing about working at Rockfield as well, because on that Friday morning, normally if we'd been working along at Chem 19, people would have gone away home, we wouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
And Lewis had said to me at the start, do you want me to hang around? I said, look, I want you to hang because he's great to have around. And, because even the bass was all done. Yeah. But then we had to do it again, so it was brilliant. Yeah.
To have it there. And also to be at Rockfield. And you mentioned Matt there. So this is wonderful. We've got a reunion. We've got another thing that's sort of like Matt Butler, who bookends really so far this story. Yeah. So was that the first time you've kind of seen him, and how long?
We had literally no. I don't think he'd been at a gig. I don't think we'd met him. I don't know had a drink. We left Air in '87. Matt engineered the record and mixed the record with John Kelly, and I don't think I can't remember meeting him since the day we walked out of the studio.
I was 23 the last time I saw him. He was 25. Yeah.
Oh,
he was
that's
this young guy working the desk. And the next time I see him, I'm 60.
He suddenly appeared on Twitter just about 18 months ago. And then we'd tweet, and then I'd see him retweeting things, and obviously very supportive about the band and all the rest of it. And then we're in South Africa doing these couple of gigs, and I'm coming back in the minibus. I said, this is really weird. We come back to the hotel in Johannesburg, and I said, I've just had a DM from Matt. Is he drunk?
I love
He's like, he said, Ricky, I've decided you guys need to make a brilliant album, and I need to record it and make it with you. And I said, I got home, I said, we'll get home, we'll chat. So got a number and the phone, had a chat. And I said, look, Matt, the only thing is, Greg and I really are going to produce this. Are you happy to, would you happy to record it, like be an engineer? He said, absolutely. I said, but I work at Rockfield, this place. So he said, I'll take you there and show you. And then Greg and I went down last summer to see it, went with Matt. And it was, it was like, I mean, it was so funny. It was like...
It's like I'd never been away.
I know. He's a really, really great recording engineer.
Oh, he is.
But this is lovely. So he's actually the reason you went to
Rockfield. Yeah.
Rockfield.
He is.
Right.
He works there all
He
the
works,
time.
yeah.
Okay, so that has a much bigger impact on the
Yeah.
album and the dynamic of the record.
And working with him, he's just fantastic.
Yeah.
He's I mean, people that are quick are often not good because they're shit, but Matt is just
And he no
so
assistant,
good. No, he didn't.
just sat there from 10 in the morning till 10 at night, and some days earlier. And the focus and the attention that takes with all this stuff going on, it's just incredible.
No, he was amazing.
Yeah. There's always something lovely about you making these albums, which are absolutely universal, but are so mapped out and rooted in Glasgow. But sometimes you're elsewhere when those songs and those albums happen. So going right back to, was it Dignity and Spencer Tracy? You write them when you're on holiday.
Yeah.
And especially, obviously, Dignity for so many people just typifies everything we feel about and love about Scotland. And even with this record, right? So you're in Monmouth, but you're singing about Hope Street and Jamaica Street.
Yeah.
And do you think there's an element sometimes of being elsewhere? Even you really having grown up in Dundee, so always having this abiding but slightly outsider's love of
I guess
Glasgow.
so. I mean, that was. I think I've told you this before, but I seem to remember that was. I think I was told you about the Morrissey Sounds cover on Dignity when I was writing Dignity.
But remind us, tell us.
Yeah, so I'd gone out on holiday in Crete. This was my ex-wife in 1985, and I must have picked up a music paper at the airport, and it was Sounds, and there was a picture of Morrissey on the front, and the headline was Home Thoughts from Abroad.
Yeah.
Clifford T. Ward, and of course the Browning poem and all the rest of it. And I thought, that's what I want to do, write about home.
Thoughts from abroad,
Yeah, and that's
so it's always
there.
been a factor.
But it's lovely to have these ideas of home and being away and roads, but also of land. So tell me about Ashore, because we have this as well. And again, I've got to say, the drums throughout, Dougie's on fire.
Oh,
right?
it's great. It's a great drum take, that. But no, he's great. He's playing so well. Lorraine's got this. Gregor come in with this acoustic guitar thing because he said, I think this could be great for us. And it was really, I love it. And I said, well, we'll think about the lyric, but let's just keep going. And I went through the Lou, and you've got that thing from...
The Odyssey.
From the Odyssey, from Coming Home.
I ripped it out of a book.
Yeah.
It's just the most romantic piece of writing I'd ever read in my life.
Yeah.
And
I thought, that's the story.
you can look at it in our toilet through the... It's about him being washed up on the shore.
On the shore, yeah.
And going into his wife's arms.
Yeah.
And look, it's just so beautiful that I ripped it out of the book and put it in a frame and hung it in the toilet.
And I suppose it's that, and I just keep rewriting it, I keep rethinking, but everyone's looking for home, it's so true.
And you were worried when we were in New Zealand that I was going to drown.
Oh, well.
Every time I went out for a swim.
Every time, because Lorraine loves water, loves going in, and one nearly did drown on a holiday one time. And every time she used to do, and she always goes out swimming everywhere now. And I'm looking, and every time she goes under the waves, I was thinking, I hope you're popping back up again, But I thought, that'd be interesting if it was someone else writing about, a female writing about someone else. Yeah. So and God Love Gregor, he took it, and it was such a great verse, it's brilliant. And I kept screwing it up because I just kept putting a bad chorus on it, and he liked the chorus, but I didn't like it, so I changed it, wrote another one, and that was sort of okay, but we ditched the song a couple of weeks before doing the album. I was like, it's not going to happen. And then one night, for some reason, I just went back in the demo and thought, I could fix this. I could write a much better chorus. And then the song came back. So sometimes it's good just to have that few months of working on things, because you just come back and forward. And then it came together really well.
Yeah.
And also, imagine by the time you're playing these songs live as well, they find their lives at different points, don't they? And the audience respond to them in all sorts of
Until
different
you've played them live, it's just so hard to kind of get a feel for them, really.
Yeah.
And when we did that Radio 2 Piano Rooms last week, we'd never played Late 88 live.
Oh, really? So
that was the first So that was quite
Wow.
scary
Yeah,
as
so
well.
with two songs we never played.
Yeah, so it was quite scary.
And we never played Dignity with an orchestra, so it was it was all a bit weird. Yeah, but I mean, it's true. It's like, and when you write a song, it's a funny thing. Even though in your head you think, well, it's great if it's recorded. It doesn't matter if it ever gets played. Like it's just there. It never feels like the circle's squared until you've played it live. It sort of feels.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's it's like if it has to find a place in a set list and
it also changes.
Yeah, it does.
You know, like, I mean, even the most obvious Dignity, you know, on the record, I hardly sing a note.
Yeah.
And live, I mean, I don't sing a huge amount, but
Yeah.
the bits I do sing are quite important now
yeah.
to the song for people. I think
quite.
things come to life and find their place, and you know, things will change. The things that I would say absolutely definite for sure, that was how it was on the record, because that's how I do it live.
Yeah.
And then you go back and think, it's not even on the record. So things change.
Yeah.
That's so true. I think one of the strongest versions of that I can think of is in Loaded, and
Yeah.
the great
Oh,
big
yeah.
World Out There line in Loaded,
That's
right?
right.
Isn't on the record.
That's
and I know
right.
that's not, it just shows you, it's like, what is the definitive version,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the debut album, but that particular
That
line,
line-
I sing it now anyway, you know, because it's become so much a part of the
You
experience
sing
of
it every
it.
single gig.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and to be honest with you, because one of the reasons is because the demo was so downbeat on that.
Sure.
And that was a demo that we were singing live, and it was John Kelly that had come in when we were doing Loaded and said, well, what about a key change? And it suddenly lifted the whole thing.
That's right. So it can just be a moment like that
Yeah,
changes it,
yeah.
or a chorus that just needs fixing a little bit.
And the little backing vocal at the end, just because you're loaded,
Yeah.
repeating at the end,
Yeah.
became
Quite.
such a
Yeah,
big
quite.
thing live, and that came from live.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was. I was saying someone the other day. Fun enough, that was the song that audiences started singing back way before Dignity. It was Jimmy and all his pals in the north of England that were with these gigs that we do. They would start singing Loaded, but it was kind of weird, you know.
Yeah, I think I knew the live version before I'd even seen
Yeah.
you because of the big picture, the VHS
Oh,
of,
yeah.
of the SECC. But it strikes me now you're saying that, just to go back to late 88 as a band, and in that period of time, you play the Playhouse, you drive the bus into the SECC. It's really not that long before you've sold that out, and Deacon Blue are all over there, and there's a live video. That's actually not a...
I know.
It's not a... I don't know what the timing is of it, but it's barely anything.
Yeah, it was just over a year, I think, till we actually
Yeah.
did that video, because we're October. I'm quite good at dates. October '88 was that time at the Playhouse, and then we recorded the
December 89.
December '89, because
Yeah.
that was quite a significant
Yeah.
time. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, it's no time. No wonder you couldn't take stock.
No time at all. No, I'm glad we did that video. I've not watched it in years, but I'm
No.
glad it's there.
I literally know every scene off by heart. But it meant I knew the live version by the time I was seeing the live and coming to the gigs, which
But
is
we-
utterly wonderful.
You know, if we were doing that now, my God, we'd be thinking about every note and what are we going to do here? And we were going into, you know,
The director
Van
got
Morrison.
driven mad by me because we would change the show. And he kept saying, what's the set list? And I said, I don't know.
Was it over 2 nights?
So we recorded over 2 nights, and also we did 2 sets, if you remember. We did an
That's
opening
right.
and a subsequent, and I kept changing the show, and I said, well, that's what we do, you
But
know.
just that confidence of youth, you know, going into
Yeah.
Van Morrison,
Yeah.
Many a Tear Has to Fall, and
yeah.
all these things, all in the game. And lots of other things that you just think now would be going, oh no, how's that going to go? And who's going to bring that back in? And it would all have
Yeah.
to be.
I beg to differ. You just covered Beyonce. You just played a song that you hadn't played live before in late 88. And you're about to just finally play a series of gigs. You're doing the kind of theatre ones, so that's taking me back to fellow hoodlums. But you're also then doing the bigger gigs as well later in the year. So we're going to get all these different incarnations
I know.
of the new songs, and later in the year also.
And we're doing the question and answer thing. We're playing at that, aren't we?
Yeah, Nicholas doing the question and answer.
I know, but we're
Yeah,
playing songs,
we're playing songs with
That's
with
actually the scariest out of Yes.
Okay, so Oran Moore, that's going to be the first one, in fact, isn't
Yeah.
it? No pressure. I can't wait.
It'd be
many
like playing the
songs are we
Glad
doing?
Cafe or something. I think 5
Yeah,
or 6.
5 or 6
Yeah,
songs, right?
that's going to be fab. But it's lovely again. It's back in Glasgow,
Well,
and I mean,
it will be good, actually.
Yeah, it'd be good fun.
it's on the Great Western Road, right?
It
Exactly.
is, yeah.
Will we go to that kebab shop
Good
after?
at making connections, I tell you.
Are we going? I'm serious. Will we go to the kebab shop after? We need to
There's
see
a
if they're...
very, very old man working there, sort of in his late 90s
With a cassette
now.
player.
Do you remember a cassette handed to you?
Oh, and I love that it was Graeme as well. How absolutely
Graeme, yeah.
wonderful. Okay, well, I guess, I'm not insinuating you need to practice before the shows, but I better let you get back to it. And I can't wait to see them live. And lovely to see you as always. Thank you for the coffee.
Oh,
Thank you.
for coming.
Thank you for listening.
Okay, spoiler alert, can you tell that I love them? Deacon Blue's Ricky Ross and Lorraine McIntosh chatting to me at their kitchen table. The Great Western Road is out now. Their big tour starts at Edinburgh's Usher Hall on the 30th of March. And I'll be at Glasgow's Oranmore for those intimate launch shows and Q&As on March the 26th. If you'd like to hear more of a Deacon Blue lovin', I would love you to listen to a Kick Up the Arts with Monarch of the Glen star Dawn Steele. Let's just say she's a huge fan of Raintown. And if you're after more music chat, there are episodes with King Creosote, Claire Grogan, Barbara Dixon, Bobby Bluebell and Skin from Hipsway. Like, subscribe, tell your pals, get in touch on social media, sign up for the newsletter, come to the live events. I would love to see you. Bye for now.